Well, hello and welcome once again, everybody, to another edition of After Further Review. Mark Ferrera and John Pelkey. Jeff Taylor off with a gig. We're assuming, Mark, a paying gig?
An actual paying gig that takes him all through the day. It's a full-time gig. How about that?
Wow. And I mentioned when Jeff texted and said it's a full-time, he's got the gig. I went, a full-time gig. And he's like, no, it's only for one day. And I went, 1 8-hour day in 2020 is a full-time gig, people. Let's remember that.
It is. It really is for a lot of us. For a lot of people, COVID has not affected their work.
Yeah.
For some people, they've gotten some new jobs. I congratulate them, new full-time jobs. But for a vast preponderance of people in our shoes, which is what makes your situation so remarkable, Johnny.
Yeah,
we have not had anything come our way at all.
No, I had one gig between the end of February, Princess Half Marathon, and I think maybe something else over at the Sports Complex. I know, though, in March, by March, it was all gone. And obviously this started in March. And oddly, something that I remembered, it was the seriousness of this really came to the fore for me because I was watching back in March some NBA.
Right.
And I was watching the night that games were canceled. I mean, canceled with people in the arena ready to play because who was it? Rudy Gobert. Who was remember there was a player that
Utah Jazz, I think, dude. Rudy
Gobert.
Tomjanovich.
Yeah, maybe. I should be better with this now that I'm working for an NBA team. But
it is your sport now, John.
It really is. Look, I'm wearing my Raptors. More Raptors swag today.
Man, you're coming in. You're coming in, totally supplicant tonight.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I need to keep this job. And after my first performance, it's up in the air. It's up in the air. Now I feel much more confident because when I'm down here, I'm writing out all of the rosters by hand in a large font just because I wanted to wait, though, because there's been some player movement. People have been a couple of guys whose names I called. I'll probably never call again because they ended up getting cut. So I want to just make sure that I have the Merry Christmas. You're out of a gig.
Yeah, and it helps to write it down too, doesn't it? Because now you're writing it and then you're reading it, you're listening, you're probably checking the pronunciations, you're doing all the things.
Absolutely. That's what I'm doing.
Perhaps we should have done before. I'm just kidding.
I went into it being told that I would have all of this stuff ahead of time, but I think no one understands exactly what we're going to be dealing with until you're in the middle of it during this COVID thing. Yeah. Because the PR people who would normally come be, at the desk and handing you stuff, they don't have access any longer. So, and I only have access. There's an entrance that I have one entrance to go through, and then I exit through another, a different exit, different egress. I've got, there's only very specific places we can go. So it makes it a little more challenging. Not an excuse. I am a disgrace. And again, with a more just God, my body would be in a pauper's grave. But that.
Well, thank goodness that the God that you don't believe in isn't just.
Speaking of which, Mark, somebody did the math on Bob Cratchit, oddly, I like that. In A Christmas Carol, it's mentioned what Bob Cratchit makes per week. And what he and what he's asking for a raise and all of that. Sure. And they did the math. They did the math for what it would be in today's dollars. And Bob Cratchit makes around $25,000 a year.
Right. So $500 a week. And
he is, in that story, just the epitome of poverty.
Well, he has 18 children.
Okay, sure, there is that. But I'm just saying
that is the poverty level. And that's well below the poverty level for a family his size.
Certainly,
it really is.
But $25,000 a year, is not good money. But now the poverty level sits at around $13,000 or something.
For an individual, but not for a family.
Yeah, but that's not the point. You don't pay people according to their family. You pay them for an individual wage. And the point is that his wage is twice what an individual's poverty wage should be. So that we are worse off now than we were in Victorian England.
I think so. That's what you were trying to get to.
Yes, I was, and you ruined it. You once again.
I was undercutting
being according to
your overall left-wing point.
It didn't matter. Sorry. It doesn't matter how many kids or anything he has. It's just that the individual job itself, it does in the macro. Don't talk. It does in the macro. Yes, it does. But in the micro, what you look at for poverty is what the individual's wages are. Now, yes, if you have 18 kids, I don't care if you make Rudy Gobert money, for God's sake. You're probably going to have a side hustle. The point being is that today, people on the poverty level, individuals at the poverty level, are making less than they did in Dickens' time, according to Dickens.
Well, again, this is where I think the argument breaks down, is that you only understand that he's poor based on what his living conditions are, and his living you're not judged that he is making a wage that is a pauper's wage necessarily. He lives a pauper's life.
Well, that is where I disagree with you vehemently, is that is what is inherent in it is that Scrooge is not paying him what a fair wage is. And he is actually, maybe to your point, paying a fair wage, but it's Cratchit's fault that he can't keep it zipped up, that he's got issues. But my point was, what Bob Cratchit's making as an individual salary is greater than what an individual salary who's considered to be poor in this day and age is.
Yeah, it's
surprising.
It's about $12 an hour, $12.25 an hour.
Right.
This has
been much less entertaining for me than
I think it's very entertaining.
You've kind of ruined it. It's obvious that you've moved to the right through all of this. I thought without Jeff here, we could just throw out our liberal stuff without being undercut by whatever Proud Boy.
I haven't moved to the right, and you act as if that's a pejorative. Frankly, I think the Democratic Party lost 13 seats, and if they would have had rhetoric that moved a little bit to the right, I think the policies are fine. But if their rhetoric,
you and I disagree on that. Well, I think that's completely. I think you present.
You think the country likes the Democrats? They lost 13 seats. We were supposed to take the Senate and gain 13 seats, and
we're not going to have this conversation. We're not going to have this conversation.
No, you brought it up that I moved to the right. This is, by the way, entertaining for everyone.
I do believe. I know. This is what you wanted.
You don't know. This is what they want. This is what they like to see. Yeah. Two old men bickering.
Right.
We're Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
Right. As long as I'm Jack Lemmon, I'm fine.
Either way, I'm fine. They're both brilliant.
I'm fine with that. Though I think really if we look at The Apartment, the movie, you're probably Jack Lemmon, and more than likely I'm Fred McMurray.
Wow, man, that is a tough movie, man. You'd think a Billy Wilder piece like that would be a little lighter, and he'd just done something like it just the year before. That's how great a director he was, and that's how great an actor Jack Lemmon is. But he was married. Is he married to Shirley MacLaine in that?
Who, Jack Lemmon?
Or are they just buddies? I forget.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. He's just attracted to her, and she's obviously flirting with him. But she's having the affair with the married man, which is Fred McMurray. Which is not saying that as a married man having an affair, but I just I have a little more of that detached.
I don't know. See, non-empathetic these postulates, John, about poverty, and then about Fred McMurray, and you don't think through them. You don't think through these postulates.
Why do I not think? What am I not thinking through? I'm completely
you're advocating that you would be a married man having an affair.
No, I'm advocating I'm more like Fred McMurray, which is literally, sort of detached and unemotionally connected to other human beings. You know that about me. That's who I am. We have a very close. We used to have a very close friend who will be moving soon. Once he's gone, I'll be. I don't know. I'll remember his name month into it. So I'm just saying
I'm the same way, though, frankly, to confess.
Keeping in touch.
Out of sight, out of mind. Now,
granted, there is that.
In the age of social media, it's been a lot easier to do that, to stay in touch. But normally, I'm not very good. It's like a circle of friends, and you get to that circle, and you give you make that friend feel like they're the only friend in the world.
Yeah.
But then you have to move on to the next circle, and that person has to wait 360 degrees or whatever it is. And in the middle of that, they usually get upset and say, what's up with you, Mark? Why aren't you calling me back? Or why don't you call me? Not a lot, but a select number of friends always expect you to do the calling. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh yeah.
Like, you don't call, you never write. Well, neither do you.
Right.
Why is this?
That's changed a lot with the social media, to your point. Sadly, now for me, you have to keep in touch with people you'd probably prefer not to. It was much easier not to pay attention to them when there wasn't social media.
Now you sort of have to.
But now, now that argument when somebody, well, you never call, you never write, and I'm guilty as charged. It's kind of, I'm right there on social media. You can send me a direct message. There's a better than average, or you can text, better than average chance I'm going to return that. Now, if you call, there's a better than average chance I'm probably not going to pick up the phone, but that doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't.
I don't like talking on the phone.
No, there might be 4 gigs that we have planned in an individual day, or it might be the day before the marathons, and there's all kinds of work that we're both doing, and that you have to keep in touch with me about. And I will call you, and you won't answer.
No, I won't.
I will text, or I will give you an audio text, and you'll call back, or I'll old school leave a voicemail, and you'll wait. And our friend that's about to move away does the same thing.
What was it? Ramsey? It's Ronald. What was his name? The guy moving away.
It's two syllables. Does begin with an R. Ends with a Y. Ramsey.
Robbie.
Robbie? No.
Robbie. I don't know. We'll come to it. That should be the trivia question. 6 weeks from now, do a progressive trivia for Riley, and I probably won't get it. So that's it's
right.
not Romney.
Romney.
I like that.
I do too. I like
that a lot. You can refer to him as Romney from now on. Yeah, we can get away with this because we know there's no chance he's listening. Or
no, there isn't. No, there's people.
He's packing. He's packing. They're leaving on the 30th. They're getting out of Dodge. I think I got to tell you, Mark. I think that there's a mistake. They're not thinking through this. I would move to 2021. 2020 is still 2020.
It's only a couple of days. Hang in there.
I think you just why tempt fate?
Sure.
Why tempt fate? The only thing about this year that's been somewhat normal, Mark, and we've talked about it here, is that the best teams seem to win championships in shortened years.
Yeah.
So that push it back to the second or the third, Romney, and and your wife Meredith. Romney and Meredith. We look forward to them.
All right, we do. It's a solid plan they have too.
All right, we are going to get to sports at some point in theory,
or maybe not.
I don't know.
Again, the people outside of our core group of listeners, and what would you say our core group is? 2? At this point,
I think it fluctuates between 2 and 5.
Yeah, 2 and 5. Okay,
yeah.
I'm not sure if Russ Ayers is still listening. To tell you the truth. I know Brian occasionally listens, and Tom. Yeah, but Brian and Tom are off and on regular listeners.
Yep.
Usually Lenny and Joe every time.
And our friend listening today, our Merry Christmas to him as well. Our friend Brian, who is he is an EMT and a pilot overachiever. That's frowned upon, on this.
Wow.
Overachieving is terribly frowned upon. And my wife is apparently paying attention, and that's generally probably because I'm being too loud, and I'll be chastised vehemently as soon as this is over.
Afterwards.
Right, but here's go ahead. What were you going to say?
I just was going to ask, before a show or before performance where you're nervous, which is what today is.
Yeah, I'm terrified. Nervous doesn't do it justice.
What's best for you in terms of her behavior toward you? If she lambasts you, is that better for your performance later on? Because you can kind of separate yourself from the world, and it's like all that matters in life is this show right now.
Maybe,
as opposed to if things are idyllic, domestically, then the show is just another part of your life as opposed to everything.
Yeah, I get soft, and it's like
you might not have a shooter's mentality. If that's all that exists for you. Yeah. If that's all that matters, that determines all of your self-worth, then you'll probably have more of a shooter's mentality, I would guess.
Little bit. I'll be better. I'm more ready for what's going to happen tonight. So, my biggest fear tonight is we're playing New Orleans. I saw Brian Ascari. So that Brian and Tom are off and on in general. I agree with that. It's oh my God, I'm getting
yard garbage.
Yard garbage day. I know. I'll get to it as soon as we'll wrap it up soon, and I promise.
Does that mean you get the garbage and you have to go to the dump with it?
No. It's just once every couple of weeks there is yard. They pick up the yard trash. Hold on, I have to let the cat out of this room. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned as John Pelkey lets
It's the cat. It's the cat we adopted when our friend passed away.
Oh, great.
Who's
Great.
when our friend Adam
cat.
passed away. It's his cat. Monko Ruda is the name of the cat. Big Maine Coon, very very cute. But likes to sleep now on the treadmill, and it's good to see the treadmill getting some work. To be quite frank. And now I've lost the complete train of thought as to what I was saying about.
Perhaps it was our listeners. You were talking about our listeners and
anyway.
Who's regular, who's not.
Doesn't matter. We need to get sports at a point.
We do have to get to sports at a point. We have a fun game we're going to play.
Yeah. Taylor's asking where Riley is moving. We don't know who Riley is, so I don't know. Wherever.
I think he's moving to
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah. Romney. Thank you.
Is Romney is moving to North Carolina, and they've got a place to stay up there, and they're selling their house, and they're going to have a little adventure. Their daughter doesn't start kindergarten until September of next year. So what the hell? You know,
absolutely.
I'm all for it. It's a great plan, if you ask me.
Yeah. It's it was good to have him in our lives, and
but the second there's any work at the ESPN Wild World Sports, John, Romney will come back down. He will. We will see him within 4 months. I'm sure of it.
You think there's going to be work in 4 months? Okay, boy.
Maybe not. 6 months, I should say.
For Christmas, I'd like to give you Living in the Real World because, Christmas of next year, maybe there'll be, maybe next fall things will pick up. But
no, it's not. Summertime's going to explode.
All right, well, there you heard it here, folks. All right, let's get to a couple other things before we get on to our NFL playoff scenario discussion that we're going to have today, because things are working themselves out, and a really good team in the AFC is going to end up not being in the playoffs.
It's true.
Either Miami or Baltimore, and those are both very good teams.
Yep.
I think at this point, frankly.
I agree.
But what I want to know is for Christmas, what sort of super spreader event are you initiating for this holiday?
I'm not traveling.
What are your plans for Christmas?
Out of the state. I think I'm going to go hang out at the lake house, as is the tradition. Yes, and
fair enough.
There's a bubble established there, and it'll be a nice little Christmas time. And I'm not not leaving the state at Christmas time. I think I've done all the damage I need to do.
You've gotten the official letters from the government asking you to please stop.
Well, actually, Rick DeSantis is encouraging me to leave.
Yes,
because
it's the DeSantis sneeze tour 2020. He basically thinks, as opposed to Christmas caroling, there should be Christmas sneezing at everyone's door. Just, oh, look, it's carolers.
Yes, he does. And he's advocating that inside restaurants as well, because, in Florida, everything's wide open. Everything's open up. It's the polar opposite of California. Yeah. And Rick DeSantis, I've received a letter from him encouraging me to be outdoors and then inside other places that I don't know the people. Big packed restaurants during football Sundays. He wants me in there. So, but everyone else, I've gotten stern warnings from: do not come into our state.
All right. So
how about you? What are you guys doing?
We are going to my mother-in-law's for Christmas Eve for dinner. She makes lobster pie and scallops. We have New England. My wife's from New England, so that's one of my favorite things. My mother-in-law is a fabulous cook. So we're going to do that New Year's Eve, and then Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day we will be here. We're doing a little English breakfast in the morning, and I'm actually making a turkey. Thanks to our friends at Universal Studios, they gave free turkeys to employees, and we got the turkey. So we're going to do turkey with all the stuffings and just hang out and maybe watch Christmas movies. We don't really have too many Christmas traditions. Our only real tradition that Jody and I have for Christmas is when we put the Christmas tree up, which we did a number of days ago. And we actually did outside decorating too. I have lights on the house, which I hadn't done in a number of years. But we put the tree up and we drink wine and eat cheese. Now this year we weren't feeling the wine, so we had hot cider and we eat cheese and like olives, and we just have a little crudité plate and we put our tree up. So that's really the only tradition.
Very festive. Do you have Christmas music playing in the house?
Sure. I usually like those sort of jazzy Christmas cocktail stuff versus
that stuff's really fun.
The traditional stuff,
Yes, exactly. Done in a jazzy, fun, hip Well, 60, sort of 60s.
Yeah, a little Rat Packy feel to it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Generally do that. And then, of course, I told you this as the recovering Catholic, the one thing that remains with me is I do stay up and watch Mass from the Vatican on Christmas Eve, every Christmas.
Dang.
Usually I get really tanked and really angry. And then I shoot off some questionable things to local monsignors and things of this nature. I gotta try to avoid that this year. There's been a lot of
I think so. Yeah.
activity. I just shoot off kind of long missives about.
Plus the Pope is he's certainly on the cool side of all that dogma.
The arc of justice, and he's kind of a bend in the arc of history. Towards justice. He's a little bit more of a bend in that direction than perhaps some previous.
And who would have thought that? Certainly in our lifetime. I guess Pope John the 23rd was the last one that was.
Which is not. I don't believe my life because Vatican II.
No, 63. I think is when he passed away.
Well, do you think the highly rated sports talk podcasts get into Vatican II and John the 23rd at any point in the holiday season? I mean, if nothing else, we're unique.
We are unique, and I wish people would know that about us, but they don't, because we refuse to do any marketing. We really do.
I had to do an interview for the Raptors yesterday. I had to do
meet John Pelkey.
Yeah, yesterday.
Meet your staff.
Yes, and it was just for a thing in Tampa, and I thought about promoting the show. But then it just didn't seem like the forum when they said what the questions were going to be. There really wasn't anything about my background. It was just about the show in the arena itself and some of the challenges during the COVID. So it was good. It was fun to talk to somebody about it, and some other folks from the production were involved as well. But I thought I could sneak this in. But then I thought, they've hired me. I'm not sure I want them to see this because they might,
think twice about the hire.
Well, wouldn't you? I think. So anyway, all right.
You wear your hair like that whilst you're doing PA?
No. This is just I haven't. I got up this morning and I haven't taken a shower because I have to drive over to Tampa around 3 this afternoon. So I'll get a little more gussied up for that than I am for the show.
All right, Johnny. I've got this stuff ready to go whenever you want to go to it.
All right. NFL playoffs are generally, we have a pretty good idea. There can certainly be some movement. Certainly we're watching the Steelers free fall. Used to be the number 1 seed. Now they could fall as far as the 4, I guess, possibly. And then also, as we mentioned on the AFC side, there's going to be a really good football team that stays out of it. And there's going to be perhaps an under 500 NFC team in the playoffs, a 500 team.
Yeah, certainly not over 500
in the minimum. So let's look at the playoff scenarios if they were to start today and see what you and I think about what could happen. Let's start in the AFC. Let's do it alphabetically. Kansas City is the 1 seed. They will get the most important thing in the history of sports, according to Mark, which is this one bye week. But your next matchup is going to be
it's the most important thing in the 2020 season and beyond for the NFL, because that's, I think, what it's going to be like. It's going to be 7 teams from here on out unless they adjust it later on. But yeah, it's 1 team. So this is going to be fascinating to me to see how this works out.
It is a big change. It's a big change for the NFL in my mind. I can't think of too many rule changes that are quite this drastic. But let's take a look at it. Your second seed now is the Buffalo Bills, and they would meet Miami. I don't think this is a great matchup for Buffalo, Mark. And I think Buffalo's playing as well as anybody, maybe including Kansas City, though we've talked about Kansas City and their ability sort of to just flip a switch. They seem to be, I don't know if you agree with this with Kansas City. They seem to be, kind of half involved in a game early, and then it just, they seem to be able to flip that switch and play well. But Buffalo gets Miami. This would concern me, Mark, because we've talked about this before. Divisional opponents, regardless of record, tend to give teams trouble.
It's the whole
familiarity.
Throw out the record book thing when divisional opponents and rivals play each other. And the really fascinating thing about this, Johnny, is that week 17, the last game of the season, they're playing each other. So it will be 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
they will play each other, and that you have no idea what's going to happen in that kind of scenario.
And I tell you, what's going to be really interesting about that final week of the season, Mark, is that Miami may be playing at that point to get into the playoffs, given what their battle with Baltimore.
Oh yeah,
over the next couple of weeks. Buffalo will probably have nothing to play for at that point in time. In fact, I don't think they can take. I guess if Kansas City lost 2 in a row, there's a possibility for Buffalo, but. As far as they match up against one another, I think that the issue will be Tua versus the Buffalo defense more than anything else, because I think that you've got with Buffalo and Miami, you have a Miami defense that is a ball hawking defense. They are very well coached. They're out of that Belichick school. If they have an opportunity to scheme for somebody and they get a Josh Allen team that they've seen already, so that's going to shorten their learning curve. I think that's going to be a bit of a push. Those are the two strengths. The weaknesses would be, Buffalo has a good defense, but they're not an overpowering defense. And the Miami offense is still a work in progress. However, Tua has proven to be a guy who's not going to turn the ball over. I think this is ripe for an upset.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me because it's well, first of all, you have them playing each other the last game of the season. I just did the analytics. I actually had Buffalo losing the last 2 games, Miami winning the last 2 games. It doesn't change anything for Miami. They stay in the 7th slot, believe it or not, and Buffalo maybe moves down to the 4 seed. But so they may or may not have something to play for that last game of the season. But yes, when they're playing each other, that's going to be really, really tough. I think Miami's defense is amazing. But again, what did they end up giving? They still ended up giving up 28 points to Kansas City. Now, one of those, I believe, was a special teams play.
I think so, yeah.
And so it's really 21 points. But to me, I really think that Buffalo's offense against Miami's defense, I think, is better than Tua against Buffalo's defense.
I think I would probably agree with you there, but I would say that I think Tua's the wild card because we just haven't seen enough of that offense.
I agree.
To know. I just think, and you agree with me that Miami's defense and Buffalo's offense are the two strengths of those teams. And the two, if you can point weaknesses, then it would be the offense of the Dolphins and the defense of the Bills. I have a tendency to agree with you. I mean, obviously, you're going to give a nod to the Bills. I think the Bills are a better team all around.
They're a better team, yeah.
But I really, really think this is a matchup they would prefer not to have. As odd as it may seem, as good as that Indianapolis defense is, and I think in the scenario you showed, they drop down and Buffalo gets Indianapolis. I think they'd prefer to have Indianapolis in the first round than Miami, frankly.
Probably. I mean, it's to your point. It's a division rival, and they know each other very, very well, and they'll have just played the week before. Now, you're talking about Miami having something to play for. This week, Baltimore plays the New York Giants, and the Dolphins are playing I believe, the Raiders. They're playing the Raiders. They're at the Raiders. They have to go all the way across the country to Las Vegas. Baltimore's at home against the Giants. Now, chances are, and the Raiders don't seem historically to do very well on the road. The Dolphins don't seem to do very well on the road against the Raiders.
But the Raiders are in somewhat of a free fall, and the Gruden effect at the end of the season has really taken hold with them. They've been a big disappointment over the last month.
All right, so we'll get to that. We'll get to what we predict what will happen in week 16 and then in week 17, and we'll see what the final scenarios will be. But yes, you're right. If it ends up being this and they have to play 2 games in a row, then that's probably the worst matchup Buffalo could have asked for.
I
agree with that.
It lends to a really, really fun last couple of weeks. And again, maybe neither of them will have anything to play for. And that final game will be, Ryan Fitzpatrick's farewell game, possibly, and people trying to stay safe. But it is an interesting matchup as well because you have the 2 teams' strengths against each other and 2 teams' weaknesses against each other. And then with the familiarity thrown in there and 2 of the best coaches. Boy, I tell you, Tom Brady picked the right time to get out of the AFC East. let's just be really honest, because you could be looking at Miami and Buffalo. You could look at a decade of Miami and Buffalo that we had back when Dan Marino and Jim Kelly were there, where those were the games of note in that division again and again. All right, let's move down to the next matchup. I think Indianapolis and Pittsburgh, it's a bad matchup from Pittsburgh, Mark, because they're playing a football game. And I think right now playing a game is a really bad matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need to right that ship very, very quickly, because not only disappointing, they've had some losses. They look bad in the losses. These aren't, fluke special teams things going away. Their offense right now is as limited as any offense in football, and that includes teams that aren't going to make the playoffs, in my mind.
Well, I think part of it is that they know there's no threat from the running game. And so they can just stack, they can put,
and they can't go downfield. There's no threat they have nothing but a short and intermediate passing game.
And everyone knows that. And everyone knows that. And so they're blocking up the middle, and they're
Ben's inaccurate right now.
His arm looks like it's not the same at all. What's interesting again about this one, John, is that Pittsburgh and Indianapolis play this week. So it's the same thing. Indianapolis goes to Pittsburgh this week, and that does not look good for the Steelers at the moment. But let's break it down. First of all, their first loss against the Washington football team, they were up by 14, and then they just looked tired because they had played 3 games in 12 games.
We kind of threw that out, and we also agreed that Washington is playing much better as of late, and they have an excellent defense. And that's a strength against a weakness there, is the Pittsburgh offense is a weakness and the Washington defense is a strength.
And Pittsburgh then played Buffalo, still tired. As a matter of fact, I think that was the 3rd game in 12 days. So people didn't care too much about that. And then again, this Monday night game against Cincinnati, if you listen to Lenny, he called it essentially. They were 4-13 against the spread whenever in the Tomlin era. We're talking 10 years now. In the last 10 years, they were 4-13 against the spread when going on the road in a double-digit favorite, regardless of who they played. And secondly, the second time, and the other point he made was that when Pittsburgh would play Cincinnati again, the second time in a season, they always sort of underachieve.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens here. Now, this is, there's no necessary trends happening. I don't know if we've ever seen a team win 11 in a row and then lose 4 in a row. And maybe
I don't believe we have. Yeah, I don't believe we have. I believe the team winning 11 in a row and then losing 3 in a row has not happened, certainly in the Super Bowl era. I believe.
No, I think that actually the Saints were 13-0 in.
This is the only second time it's happened,
and they lost the last 3. But they had already clinched everything, and they weren't playing anyone, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, but the Steelers play the Colts this week, and then next week they play the Browns. At the Browns. Yep. So this is not easy. Our
division still in play.
Yeah. Wow. How about that? That's amazing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Friend of the and they had a 3 or 4 game lead at one point in time. The Steelers said they were cruising in the division. It was the most obvious division winner as we looked at it just a couple of weeks ago. But our friend of the show and father of frequent guest, collaborator, and favorite sports host by many, Keith Abbott, was saying that they're not going to win another game, and at the end of the season, their offensive coordinator is going to be fired. And if that's the case, that's a precipitous fall from being the number 1 seed to not even winning your division and losing 5 in a row. You're right. They could lose. Let's see if they lose against. Let's do this real quick. They're going to lose against the Colts. We'll have the Browns beat the Jets, which I don't think anyone has a problem with. And then week 17, the Browns beat the Steelers. And sure enough, the Browns win the division. And then
they play the Steelers. Oh, it's perfect. It's so great.
The AFC is set up.
And look at the division. Look at what happens in that situation. You have 2 AFC South teams playing one another in the first round as well, Tennessee and Indianapolis.
But look at that. See, if Miami beats Buffalo, then that's what happens there. So it's very funky. We will go through this in a bit, but I think Pittsburgh. Does it come down to Ben, Johnny? Does it come down?
Well, I think it does. I don't know that
throw downfield.
I don't know. It's so much the offensive coordinator's fault. He even seems now, he was accurate on those short and intermediate throws early in the season. And as the season's gone on, he's become less accurate on those. Also, his wide receivers, gosh, Derek brought this up the last time he was on the show. The wide receivers been dropping a lot of passes for Pittsburgh. And this was kind of the strength of their team prior to that.
They lead the league in dropped passes, but
yeah,
we saw some of he was missing wide open people as well.
He was
throwing into triple coverage when there was a wide open wide receiver doing the post deep. I don't know. There might be something up with Ben.
And they asked him if it was due to injury. I heard an interview with him yesterday, and he said, they said, do you feel like you're 100%? And he kind of equivocated, and it's the honest answer. It's like it's December in the NFL. Nobody's 100%, and that's true. But there's been a real drop off in that accuracy. And frankly, we've said it. They can't run the ball. They can't throw deep. And now they can't throw short and intermediate passes. There's really nothing on offense that they do well. They're not just one-dimensional. They're no-dimensional right now. I guess you can blame the offensive coordinator, but I think it really comes down to if you have an inaccurate quarterback like that, you're not going to have success.
So I think, Johnny, the AFC is pretty well set outside of Miami and Baltimore. So if you don't mind, let's do a scenario of these teams and whether they win or lose. It's just for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So 6 games, and let's have some fun and do that. All right. So the first AFC game that matters, Falcons at Kansas City. I mean, do any of us think that there's a threat for them to lose the number 1 seed? I don't think that's the case. Do we even?
They're 13-1. I mean, Pittsburgh has 11 wins. I don't think any of us see Pittsburgh winning out. Buffalo has 11 wins. I mean, I think it's mathematically there, but I don't think any of us really believe that's going to happen. And I don't think it'll matter for Kansas City, frankly, because again, Buffalo. I think it's a flip the switch.
Yeah, Buffalo is at New England.
New England.
I would go with Buffalo on that. How about you?
Yeah, I'd lean towards Buffalo, but this also has the hallmark of all of a sudden Bill Belichick with a against a team that he's seen puts together a defensive battle. It's just New England's so limited offensively as well. It's really difficult to think of them outscoring anyone at this point.
True. He's able to shut down offenses though. It's very interesting. And
take the under.
Okay, so who we going with on this one? We going to go with Buffalo?
I'm going to go with Buffalo because they're a better team.
All right. So Tennessee is at Green Bay. Now that's a good game. That is a great game. And Green Bay is holding on to their number 1 seed against Seattle and against New Orleans. Although New Orleans, I think they've beaten New Orleans early, so they're in good shape there. And I'm not sure about Seattle, but I would say. I don't know. I think Tennessee has a shot in that game.
I think they do too because they run the football really, really well. They can keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. And Ryan Tannehill, since I believe the beginning of last season, Mark, I believe Ryan Tannehill has the best passer rating, touchdown to interception ratio, and completion percentage of any quarterback in the NFL. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
The only thing they can't do, here's the problem. They don't get pressure on the quarterback. So take the over on this, maybe. It really depends on, it's in Lambeau, right? So weather could be an issue. I would lean towards Green Bay, but that's a Green Bay giving a point, I guess.
Let's go with Green Bay
on
that. You make a good point about Lambeau Field. That's Tennessee's Tennessee. It gets cold in Nashville. Yes,
it does. It does. And they are running the football team, but
they are. They are. That's a great point too. All right. Do the Steelers get right or do they lose to the Colts?
I think the Colts are better.
Okay. Rams usually have the Seahawks number. Do they have their number again following a loss to the Jets? Unbelievable. They are. I think I'm going with the Rams on this one because no one can predict the Rams. And they usually take care of business with Seattle.
I would lean towards them as well. And Seattle has been somewhat erratic. I think really it comes down to Jared Goff. The defense for the Rams haven't been erratic.
We actually shouldn't worry about this one, Johnny, because we're ostensibly only doing the AFC for now.
Yes.
We're going to look at so who cares about that game?
Everyone now listening is confused, as am I, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. We're moving on. It's the only game that we shouldn't have done. Baltimore is going to beat New York, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Browns are going to beat the Jets.
Yeah.
Raiders and Dolphins. I think the Dolphins take care of business.
I just think the Raiders are a mess.
Yep. All right, Kansas City, I'm going to have them winning, and the Jags, and okay, so there it is. So that's what we've got. Everyone's got 15 games under their belt. Let's go to Week 17 in the AFC at the moment.
And we'll just tell everybody who's listening and not seeing it that after that week of games, the things that have changed is Pittsburgh has dropped down, and they would face Cleveland in the first round, and Tennessee and Indianapolis would play. They would be the 3rd and the 6th seed, respectively.
And Pittsburgh still has a home game, clinging on to that home game.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going into Week 17, Miami at Buffalo. Now, Miami has a lot to play for. They have to win that. If they win that game, they've clinched postseason. Do they beat the Bills, who beat them earlier in the season? We both agree that the Bills are probably a better team.
Yeah, but Bills will have nothing to play for. They're with one to play. They're 2 games behind Kansas City in the win and loss column. I think that Miami does win that football game. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
These are not your fathers and grandfathers Miami Dolphins in my mind. They're a little grittier than that team has been in a long time.
Baltimore will beat the Bengals, but that won't matter. Browns and Steelers. You're going with the Browns, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Browns are going to win that division. Pittsburgh is now on the road as we speak. Tennessee beats Houston, I think. I think we can agree to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Colts beat the Jags. I think we can agree with that.
Yeah. Jags don't want to win anymore. Trevor Lawrence.
That's true. And then we've got that, and that's about it. So this is what the finals. So it's still Miami at Buffalo.
Yep.
And it's now Pittsburgh at Cleveland.
At Cleveland, they lose the home field advantage.
And then Tennessee at Indianapolis.
Wow, this is really interesting, too, because Tennessee and Indianapolis, that's a slugfest. Yeah. Because the Indianapolis defense, I've been on them all year. They're very good. And Phillip Rivers has not really resorted. We saw the Phillip Rivers in San Diego with the bad interceptions. He's a terrific talent, Mark, but I think we both agree he's kind of clam in playoffs, though that, he was with a clam organization really largely in playoffs. But I think that is a really, really old school. I mean, it'll be indoors, so it's just too bad it won't be outdoors, because that's a slugfest right there in my mind. I'd give a little bit of the nod to Tennessee just because of how well they run the football.
We're going to have 2 games. Matching up 4 teams that have just played each other the week before.
Yep.
That's just nuts.
Yeah.
The AFC is a lot of fun. Outside of the number 1 seed, the AFC is a lot of fun.
Right. And in this scenario, as we pointed out, the Baltimore Ravens don't make the playoffs. And I think, there are weeks where the only team you would not want to see other than the Ravens would be the Kansas City Chiefs when they're playing at their potential.
That's an 11-5 team that doesn't make the playoffs. That's a rare thing. It's happened. It has happened on occasion. It happened, I believe, with the New England Patriots the year of Matt Cassell,
right?
After when Tom Brady was hurt. Matt Cassell. And it also happened one year with the Denver Broncos in the 80s. They were 11-5 and missed the playoffs. It doesn't happen often. It happens maybe once every other decade. But
where on the other side, you could have a 7-9 team win its division, get a home game.
Speaking of, let's go over there right now.
All right.
Let's clear all this up and let's go to Week 16. So this is what we have right now in the NFC, Johnny.
If the playoffs started today, Green Bay gets the bye. Your second seed would be New Orleans, and they would entertain Arizona, which is really fun. Kyler Murray, congratulations on your Pro Bowl, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Your Pro Bowl election. Third seed, Seattle and Tampa Bay.
I mean, come on.
Good Lord.
These are really fun matchups.
God. And then your fourth seed is the Washington football team taking on Los Angeles.
Exactly. And
that's a bad matchup for the Rams.
I think so.
It would be like 2-0 that game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see Washington doing anything offensively, and they just have to hold on to the ball. And because Aaron Donald and that defense can cause all kinds.
I think if Alex Smith is back, I think Washington and Washington has had some success. If they get a little healthier at running back, they have had a little success running the ball. And I like Alex Smith does get the ball out of his hands quickly, so he matches up a little better against the Rams. But that's you're talking about probably the two most feared defensive fronts in football.
Yeah, it's 2-0. It's a 2-0 final, or maybe 5-2.
Well, you know what? If either of these teams may need a defensive or a special team score, that would not surprise me in the least.
It would not be, and they both are capable of doing that. Yeah, over and over again. Frankly, Washington has, in a lot of ways, made their bones this year on that, and so has Los Angeles.
Yeah, oh my God, that is really. Well, you talk about
old school. That's 5-3. It's 1 safety, 2 field goals. There was a 5-3 game in 1970 between the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken. It was a divisional playoff, and that's when the Lions were always a perennial contender, if you will.
Yeah,
I think it was Greg Landry's era, and 5-3.
Billy Sims, probably. Yeah. If the Dodgers played the Nationals, they would score more than the Rams playing the football team.
I like that a lot. That's a great,
and I think that's true. I honestly do think that could.
No, it would be. That would be a hilarious matchup. And then you look at Tampa Bay and Seattle, and that could be a massive shootout for all we know, because Tampa's defense is suspect suddenly, and Seattle's defense has never quite gotten off the schneid, although they have played better as of late.
They're just inconsistent. They're really Seattle from week to week is difficult to wrap your head around. They really are, because they're very good, but boy, they can play as flat as anybody at times. And Russell Wilson at times, and when both of you and I think Russell Wilson, Hall of Fame quarterback, the most undervalued guy in the NFL, but he is like a lot of guys. If he has to press, he'll hold on to the ball a little bit too long. That's I just, in that situation in Seattle, I'd have to take the Seahawks in that match.
Yeah. Although it's an awful lot of fun, and we'd have to look back. Tom Brady, I'm not sure, has won that many road playoff games, to tell you.
Hasn't had to play many.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. He's probably had to play less than half a dozen in his illustrious career. He's probably played 60 playoff games in his life. Yeah, I would think, or roughly. Those numbers. I don't think,
and I'm sure only a third of them at most on the road.
Oh no, I don't. I think he's probably played maybe 6 games on the. It seems to me it's not that much at all. I'm going to quickly go to Seattle's schedule over the last few games, and because I think they've really stepped it up. Now they've played the Jets, they played your Washington football team.
And Washington hung around. Again, that's a really, really good Washington defense. They were terribly limited at quarterback. But that, to me, that gave me a little hope as a Washington football fan that if Alex Smith gets back, that offense could do a little bit of something. They moved the ball a little bit at the end on Dwayne Haskins. To your point, Mark, that Seattle defense, there are times when they can get boat raced a little bit.
14 points, though, John, over the last 6 games. Yeah. 14 points they've averaged. Giving up. You're going to win most games if you only give up 14 points.
The Jets, they get a Tampa Bay team with weapons everywhere. That's going to be a little different. That's not going to be the low scoring game.
I agree, but they only gave up 21 to the Cardinals, only 16 to the Rams.
Yeah.
Now, 17 to the Eagles, 12 to the Giants. Yes, they've not played. They've had 3 NFC East teams and then an AFC East team to play in the last 4 games. So of course they're going to get right. You're right.
And by the way, Mark, remember about, I don't know, a month ago when it was a pretty good money bet that the NFC Championship game could possibly be Tampa Bay and Seattle?
Yeah.
Remember that? Well, now it's first round. Yeah.
It is first round game, 6th seed versus the 3rd seed. So let's go ahead and do our
moving forward
this week. Green Bay against Tennessee. We're going with Green Bay on that one, we said.
I call it a pick 'em, but yep.
I think LA, Seattle, for whatever reason, like the Niners have the Rams number, the Rams seem to have the Seahawks number. Even
I trust your NFC West stuff. I trust your NFC West knowledge.
Okay. We've said that the Giants are going to lose to the Ravens.
Yes.
Eagles and Dallas, because we have to go through these NFC East games because it matters. It matters. Eagles and Dallas. Who wins that game, Johnny?
Today, I'd say Philadelphia.
This Sunday, we're going with the Eagles.
They look good. Jalen Hurts looked terrific against New Orleans.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he did.
Really good. And Dallas is, God.
I would say the Washington football team gets by the Panthers.
I think so. Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. I would say the Cardinals beat the 49ers. I would say the Bucks beat the Lions. I would say that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah.
I think Chicago somehow is still in the mix, believe it or not.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to give them a win over the Jags. How about the Vikings at the Saints?
I think the Saints. I think the Saints win that. I think up until last week, Minnesota still was in the hunt, and they've been a disappointing team. I think you'd agree this year, Mark. Minnesota. Yeah. They can run the football, and we all know Kirk Cousins can have good games, and he can have mediocre and worse games. But I think Saints. I think the Saints are going to get on a little bit more of a roll getting into the playoffs, and Drew Brees and his 11 broken ribs are just going to continue to get better.
All right, so now here's where they stand. Going into the last week of the season, Green Bay is the first seed. Arizona is at New Orleans, which is the same matchup.
Same there.
Seattle is now at Los Angeles.
Wow.
So they're now they're not hosting a game. Tampa Bay is at Washington. Oh my gosh, man. Now what do you think of that as a Washington football fan, having a team like Tampa Bay with those weapons? Do you have confidence in that defense that you could shut down that team?
Well, I don't think you can shut them down. I think they can hold them down a bit. And let's be honest. Tom Brady has good numbers and everything, but that offense is not quite as good as the sum of its parts at this point.
Not yet. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Washington can get a lot of pressure on an immobile quarterback. I think probably a low scoring game. I just, the Washington offense is so limited, and not knowing really how Alex Smith is going to be, 100%. And as Derek Abbott mentioned on the show, we all hold our breath every time he drops back to throw. So I think Tampa Bay takes care of business there in a low scoring game where Tom Brady is maybe relatively uncomfortable throughout that game.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right, week 17, final week. We've seen the matchups as they stand going into that. Cowboys play the Giants. Is an important game because the Giants need the win to put pressure on the footballers. The footballers. I like calling them the footballers. You think the Giants can beat the Cowboys in that scenario? Do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, I do.
I think the Seahawks beat the 49ers.
Okay.
We've got, now this is a tough one. Arizona at the Rams. See, this is where I think Arizona beat. I think the Rams are horrible at home.
You just can't. That'd be early on. I thought they were good at home, actually.
Well, it's really weird because they've played well against Arizona also.
But Arizona's defense, where LA falls apart is when Jared Goff gets uncomfortable. He still is not good playing as Derek's off schedule. And he has a tendency, he's one of those guys where kind of bad mistakes snowball a little on him. And if he's not in a rhythm, does Arizona have the defense to make that happen? I don't know. I really, that's a hard call for me. I will, your knowledge of the NFC West is a little better. I'm
taking a quick cursory look at the Rams. Just inexplicable. They beat the Seahawks and the Buccaneers. Okay. And then they lose to the Niners. Now they beat the Cardinals by 10 points. Mm-hmm. They killed the Patriots, and then they lose to the Jets.
Right.
And they haven't. So they've beaten the they've beaten the Seahawks, and they've beaten the Cardinals, and that's who they played the last two games of the season. So they're 1-0 against both those teams. They're 0-2 against the 49ers, inexplicably. I don't know. They could beat the Cardinals, but I don't.
I'm going to go Rams in that game because I just think they have the better defense. And push comes to shove down the stretch, I go with better defense. That's me.
Okay, so we're going with the Rams against the Cardinals. There we go. That's interesting. Okay. So the next NFC matchup are the Falcons against the Bucks. You would assume the Bucks would win because Tom Brady never loses to the Falcons, as we know.
Right.
Unbelievable. I think New Orleans takes care of the Panthers.
Yeah.
I think we're good with that. Vikings and Lions, doesn't matter. Green Bay at Chicago. Green Bay will not have anything really to play for because I think New Orleans, I think they still, let me just quickly, it doesn't matter. So let's go with the Bears.
Okay.
And if they win, the Bears now are in the 7th seed.
And Arizona's gone.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, the Washington football team against the Philadelphia Eagles for all the marbles, John, because if they lose, the Giants get that 4th seed. I'm leaving this pick up to you. I'm leaving it up to you, Johnny.
Well, I think Alex Smith is back at that point, and I think defensively, of course, we don't know who the starter is going to be. Doug Peterson, we do, but he won't just say it for the remainder of the season. I'll take the Washington football team. Better defense. I'll always take a better defense if I don't know.
So the matchups in the NFC are the 1st seed is Green Bay, and Chicago sneaks in at 9-7 and replaces Arizona because Los Angeles beat them. How about that? How about that?
I don't see that would not surprise me in any way.
So Chicago plays New Orleans at New Orleans. Seattle now is at Los Angeles. And Tampa Bay is still at Washington.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's do those first round matchups.
Well, New Orleans. I mean,
New Orleans.
I mean, Chicago's played better as of late, certainly.
So they're the 2nd seed. So they'll have another home game if they win that one. And then Seattle at LA. That's just. I
would just take experience, and I know that the Rams have been to the Super Bowl, but I will take Russell Wilson over Jared Goff in that situation.
All right, so the 6th seed wins out, and then Tampa at Washington.
It still just remains the same for me. I just don't think Washington, as good as that defense is, unless their offense really, really ramps it up. And again, there were times where they ran the ball really, really well. Tampa.
Okay. So we've got the matchups will be Seattle will be at Green Bay, which is a fun one. And then Tampa will go to New Orleans, which is also a great, fun game. And how interesting is that, John? That's the 3rd time they will have played. And New Orleans has their number, at least so far. But it would not surprise me, a Tom Brady team, 3rd time around, beating them. It doesn't often happen that a team beats another team 3 times. I mean, it's very, very rare. It has happened. We know that. 1999, Jacksonville, Tennessee is a perfect example. All right, so let's go. So that's the 2nd round matchup. The divisional matchup, if you will be coming up. What's the AFC? Kansas City's smoking a cigar at home, watching the games.
Yeah.
Sipping on a little bourbon. And Baltimore visits. Wait a minute. What happened here? Oh, okay. We need to get this straight. This is hilarious. All right. So we got to go back. We got to fill out all this.
Uh-oh.
Bullshit. Okay.
This is compelling for the podcast listeners.
It is. I'm so
Mark
sorry.
Worked his way through this playoff machine on ESPN, which is really kind of fun because it gives you the breakdowns, and then you can make your projections for the next couple of weeks, and it moves everything around. So Mark's just going through now what we expect.
Yeah, we're going through it now. We're just doing the AFC matchups now, which is unfortunate. I should have just done that while we were doing the other one, but of course I didn't. All right, so now let's see how we're still not where we're supposed to be. Tennessee, I'm trying to narrate this as I move along, Johnny, and it's not working.
Kansas City, they beat the Falcons.
Okay, let's see if we have anything over here. We've got Baltimore winning that game. That's not going to help them. The Browns win this game. And let's go back to the Browns. The Browns are playing the Jets a week before. So now we're trying to get here's the Colts. So here we are. Do we have? Nope, we don't. We still. Okay, we are getting there. Believe me, folks, we are getting there. We apologize for the horrific nature of this part of the podcast.
All I'm thinking about is pronunciations of the
We've got it. We've got it.
All right.
Man, that was 30 seconds that I can never get back, and neither can our listeners. We apologize.
They're all gone anyway. So at this point, I would assume through all of this non-entertaining playoff talk, which is only fun for you and I, but I mean, that's why the podcast is here, to keep you and I from doing harm to ourselves. All right. So Miami and Buffalo, I think we both agree.
It's the only reason we have a podcast is to keep us from walking into the sea.
Yeah, exactly. Miami and Buffalo, I think, again, bad matchup for Buffalo. I think it's not one they would really like to have, but I think in the end, it's just a little too much for Miami. So I would take Buffalo in that.
Okay. Cleveland, I think Cleveland, now who knows? Talk about a team with no experience.
Yeah.
And talk about a city with no experience.
Good offensive line, though. Baker Mayfield's playing now that they have that offense kind of figured out with what he does well. That become a really dangerous offense. And again, Pittsburgh. I need to see Pittsburgh do something because they have been to my and they have been the least impressive offense in football over the last couple of weeks.
So let's go with Cleveland on that one, and then it's Tennessee at Indianapolis. And my vote's going to be Tennessee.
Yeah, mine too.
So now we have the 1, 2, 3, and 5 seeds making it, which means Tennessee goes to Kansas City, which, of course, they did last year in the championship game.
Game.
And Cleveland would go to Buffalo. Oh, man, that is old school. That is old, really is. Like cold AFC, the northern tundra. It's like, wow, Cleveland at Buffalo. All right, so those are the matchups. Green Bay is hosting Seattle, and New Orleans is hosting Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Kansas City is hosting Tennessee, and Buffalo is hosting Cleveland. Let's quickly run through this. Let's start with the AFC. Tennessee at Kansas City. I just think the Chiefs.
Me too.
And then Cleveland at Buffalo. Yeah. Okay. So
I go Buffalo. It's a really good game, and that would not be a shocker. But I just think Buffalo's on a roll right now, and Josh Allen is, he's in the discussion for AFC MVP.
Talk about figuring it out. They have figured it out on that offense. That offense suddenly looks so scary, and it was just a good offense for most of the season, and it seems to have clicked. So we're going to get the matchup we really want, which is Buffalo at Kansas City. The last time they were in a championship game was 1993 with Joe Montana and Jim Kelly. So Buffalo at Kansas City. Let's do the divisional round. Green Bay is hosting Seattle.
I'm going to go with the Packers.
As will I. And Tampa Bay is hosted by New Orleans for the third time.
I don't think you beat Tom Brady 3 times.
Really? Okay. Really? All right. So we've got Tampa Bay. That would be fun. I don't know. New Orleans is tricky. And again, we've talked about this. I don't know how long Michael Thomas is on the IR, but normally the IR is about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
but who knows this year if they've made a lot,
adjustments. But to me, he's more important. He and Kamara are more important than Drew Brees on that team, and their defense I think has gotten better. I would love to see it. I would love to see Tampa Bay the third time around figure it out. And so our conference championship games are Tampa at Green Bay and Buffalo at Kansas City. I mean, NFL would be thrilled with that.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. Oh my God, you'd see all the old shots of Warren Sapp chasing down Brett Favre in the preview. I mean, there was a period of time where those were your 2 bell cow teams in the NFC for a bit there together, and that was a must see television when those guys would get it on.
The 2 quarterbacks' ages added up in the AFC 45 roughly. The 2 quarterbacks' ages in the NFC added up, Johnny?
145.
145. So it's really old school against the new school.
Yeah.
And then I would say Kansas City beats Buffalo. I just think they'll find a way.
It's Super Bowl 1, Mark.
Oh, man. So Green Bay beats
and Kansas City.
Man. And then Kansas City, I would assume.
And I got to tell you, we change the scenarios and go back and change some of those, we might see some difference. I mean, I think Baltimore is a team that if they were to get in, given how dynamic they can be offensively, they could pull an upset of a Buffalo or, even a Kansas City in my mind. Because Lamar is such a, as is Mahomes, he's such an unknown as far as what if you're going to be able to. Do you get the Lamar that can't get anything done from the pocket, or if he gets, 25% of his plays or passes from the pocket, you're in trouble against them. I think everybody's hoping they don't make the playoffs, to be quite frank.
No, that's a great point. It really is. And they very well may not at 11-5 make it. And everyone will breathe a sigh of relief in the AFC outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously.
Because the idea is that Miami's ahead of the game. So I think most in our mind is thinking, okay, well, they're going to get there and they're going to give somebody a game, and sure, they could pull an upset. But, they're still a year or so away. They need to do a couple more things to get to be a championship caliber team. I think the argument is with Baltimore, if they play to their potential, they are already a championship caliber.
Yeah, that's a very good call. Now, we're over an hour, and both of us have things to do today.
Yeah, we should probably go.
And I know you wanted to talk a little Christmas. Can I throw this out as to what you think the average NFL fan, if they asked for what their Christmas present would be for the most entertaining, fun Super Bowl matchup, would it be the one we just outlined?
No, I think if you ask the average NFL fan to take their teams out of the mix, obviously,
their Christmas wish for the Super Bowl.
I think their Christmas. Boy, that's really tough because I was going to say Tampa Bay and Kansas City because of the Brady Mahomes thing, but I just wonder if there's so much Brady fatigue that people would prefer not to see it. How
about this? The NFL's Christmas wish, the league's Christmas wish.
Kansas City, Green Bay.
I agree with you. I think
because it gives them all of that. They get to break out the NFL films on Hank Stram and Lombardi.
Sure.
And you arguably have in 2020 the two best teams in their leagues. I mean, I think the AFC is just stacked with really good football teams. I think there are at least 8 of them that I think could win more than one game in the playoffs. The NFC maybe not quite so much, but I just think that would be the matchup that they would like to see. I think there's a part of America that would love to see Tom Brady in a Super Bowl for another team. And then there's probably an equal amount of people who don't ever want to see Tom Brady play again.
Well, I would love to see Tom Brady, obviously. And Joaquin is talking about a Tampa Bay, Green Bay championship game. See the folks like Joaquin and Lenny, Clint, I think they're hanging in with this pure sports talk part. All the other folks that enjoy you and I and enjoy the banter, they had a great time early on when we were at each other's throats. I think you're right. I think the NFL would love to have Green Bay and Kansas City. I think this is Super Bowl 55, if I'm not mistaken, and it goes back to 1. That would be a lot of fun. People would enjoy that, and that's a nice 2020 thing. As we're getting into 2021, we're probably feeling nostalgic a little bit. I think because this year has been so difficult for most of the world.
I want to point out
a variety of reasons, and
I just wanted to point out everybody's saying Buffalo. I think both you and I would love to see Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I want to throw that out. That would be a fun thing for us to see. But we're talking in terms of what the NFL would like to see.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if most fans. Well, you think most fans would want to see Buffalo? I mean, that's probably a pretty good call that they'd like to see Josh Allen. They'd like to see him in there, and how exciting he is, and the fact that Buffalo hasn't been there since the '93 season.
Never been able to win one. Right.
No, 4. They had 4 in a row, and they lost them all. And then Tampa Bay, of course, would be a lot of fun against the old the 43-year-old quarterback against the 24-year-old quarterback, whatever it is. Yeah. I don't know about most fans. I think the NFL, though, you're right. I think it's Kansas City, Green Bay.
Well, I'll say this about most fans. I think Patrick Mahomes himself brings a lot of people to the table. Our friend Tim's son, who plays football, Reese. I mean, he is just obsessed with Patrick Mahomes. And I think Mahomes sits there where like a Marino did and maybe an Elway, one of those guys where people who aren't necessarily the week in and week out, and there's no offense to Reese, he's like 9 and he's a good guy. But I think there's a lot of interest in Patrick Mahomes that would get average and even maybe below average as far as how much they ingest of the game, who would really like to see Patrick Mahomes. And there are probably plenty of those who don't know who Josh Allen is yet. He hasn't really been introduced to America on a big stage yet.
No, he hasn't. And Lenny pointing out that New Orleans would be just as good for the NFL playing Kansas City as Green Bay, outside of the fact that they wouldn't be able to get all those highlights of Vince Lombardi and Hank Stram.
Well, they could get Hank Stram, who coached the New Orleans Saints, not successfully, but he had a couple of years with them with Bobby Douglas. Oh, those boys, Saints fans, they deserve it. I just worry because the 11 broken ribs for Drew Brees, and offensively, I just worry about them. To your point, if they're completely healthy offensively and Brees, then it's going to be difficult. But I just beating Tom Brady 3 times in a row with an offense that I think we both agree the parts are greater than the sum right now.
They are.
That could, they've had moments where that offense has looked unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean the second half against the Falcons, for instance.
But that's the Falcons.
It is the Falcons, and it's Tom Brady against the Falcons. And
the Falcons' motto, right? 30 minutes of great football. That's their motto.
That's the only flag they can hang up in their stadium because they've never won a Super Bowl. They've only been one
champion. They're halftime champion. It's like
the Clippers, December's champions.
December's champions.
We got that in. We got that in.
One game. Put it all on the Clippers, everybody.
Yeah. December's champions, the LA Clippers, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. Good job, Paul George. 33 points. Well done. Where were you? Where were you when it mattered?
Doc's gone. He was holding them back.
Maybe.
He was holding them back. So.
All right. I think we're done, Johnny.
Okay. Yeah, I got to go make sure I have everything prepared for tonight.
All right.
I have to hit the road now in less than 4 hours. So
we all wish you luck. We'll all
be
thinking about you. We'll all send as much good energy and good juju your way. And I want to personally tell you, break a leg. I'm sure it still applies, right? I'm sure it still applies. It's a performance.
Yeah, it is.
You're on stage.
I'm pretending to be. I'm acting the part of a PA announcer.
Exactly. That's how it is.
And you would think that it was just I'm reading things, which it largely is, but there are a couple of things. Reading rosters off your phone it's not optimal. It's not optimal.
No, and now you're writing it out. Now you're going to have John Pelkey, by the way, has wonderful handwriting, and he's going to have it all laid out in front of him. And he's going to be the pros pro. I'm telling you, he's going to kill it tonight.
Yeah.
Going to kill it.
Well, thanks to Lenny and David Lowe and people who are sending. And by the way, David Lowe's having a good sports year for Northwestern. First of all, excellent job in the Big Ten championship game. They are Pat Fitzgerald. Hopefully, will decide to stay at Northwestern because he would be a very, very sought after coach in any other big time school. Boise State's head coach, by the way, headed to Auburn. They thought outside the box. I think that will benefit them. Just trying to think of the last couple of stories that we didn't have a chance to touch on. But I was going to say Northwestern upsets Michigan State in college basketball the other day. College basketball moving forward, before we get out of here, Mark, it's going to be interesting because they're running into a lot of game cancellations and things now. It's going to be interesting to see how they navigate.
I was rooting for WVU last night against KU. Couldn't quite make that happen. But we should say this, that we were lambasting Tennessee getting the bowl game and Army being shut out, and it turns out Tennessee can't do it because of COVID-related issues, and they picked Army for crying out loud.
And so Taylor Ferreira's alma mater, the Fighting Mountaineers of West Virginia, will face the Black Knights of the Hudson, and we know you being anti-military, you'll be pulling for the Mountaineers.
As always, I'm a big WVU fan. Are you kidding me?
I think they canceled the Military Bowl, by the way, Mark. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. I think what's supposed to happen, I think what COVID is just exposing what's the chaff and what's the wheat actually in life. It certainly has in my life. Man.
Agreed.
I've been hugely exposed, and that's it. Although, what was there? There was one other thing. There's a pretty good bowl game. There's a couple of bowl games The Gators. Who are the Gators playing?
Oklahoma.
That's a great game.
Yeah.
For instance.
There are a few top end matchups that are very, very good. We would give you our predictions for the national championship in college football, but they would be what everybody else's is. So Clemson and Alabama in the final. I think that's where we're moving towards. I don't see anybody else beating. I don't see anybody else getting there, frankly.
All right. We went through the whole song.
We did. Get out of here.
All right.
I got to go. I got to write stuff down.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
See you later.